Guys, this is me in vlog number 3 of Imperium Academy, and I'm so excited to actually share with you the six-figure fusion part of the course because it's been a major eye-opener for me. Like, I can't stress enough. There's some concept in the course that actually stuck with me for a long time. Like, legit, when I was like going through the course the other day, I spent the latter half of the courses actually just deep into thought. Like I spent like 3 hours just thinking about this concept, and it blew my mind. So it blew my mind how crazy it is. I've heard of the concept before, but it only stuck with me when Charlie actually introduced it to me. So, I think I've seen that concept. I've seen the concept being introduced by some events. But anyways, I'm gonna go over six-figure fusion. So these videos are more for self-reflections rather than daily vlogs. Because I've been doing the action items. I've been doing um, anything that's been set for me to do. I've been pushing myself to do things that are a bit more outside my comfort zone, and this is one of those. Actually, doing a recording because I'm not someone that's as outgoing to actually post on social media. I tend to stay away from the limelight in a lot of cases. um, but I want to spend a lot of time to reflect on the previous course or the previous material I've just went through. It's the six-figure fusion. I just finished it the other day. I am into 1.4 grade A selection, and I've already went through the action items there and just waiting for people to respond back to me for some things that I'm waiting on them for. Six-figure fusion. If I go over my notes alone, it will do injustice to just how much information it is providing. I can't go over this module and give it justice because there's so much good information to it. I'll give it injustice if I have to go and go over to every concept that Charlie introduced here. There are some things that I have in my notes that I actually spent the time to really understand, and there are a few things that really stuck up with me. First of all is the foundations of what you need to become successful in consulting or consulting business. In a lot of cases, consulting just means like if you're doing DFY, like digital marketing agency, or if you're an agency, or if you're doing like DIY, then you're in the consultation niche. I am in the consultation niche, and I'm in the done for you category. But in the concept in 1.2 fusion or 1.36 figure fusion, um, Charlie goes over like what you need to actually become successful in this business. And the way you become successful in, let's say, if you want to do digital marketing, is you need to really understand how important picking a niche is. Picking an, you want in business, what you want in business is you have to have a clear direction in how to scale and give the best results for your clients. And I have a really bad, excuse me, nose is a bit stuffy. So you want to give the best result for your clients because that's what your reputation entails to. That's how you're gonna get more clients because you're gonna have better results to give in, and you're gonna have a name for yourself in the industry. If you dilute yourself to all the different things in like every single niche ever possible, if you're doing digital marketing, then you're gonna spread yourself thin. Not only are you gonna spread yourself thin, you're also gonna not give the best output for your clients because you have basically no specialization. So what I mean by that is, let's say you are a digital marketing agency that offers marketing services for local businesses, and maybe you're doing one for roofing, and maybe your second client would be a dental clinic, and maybe your third client would be um, some outrageous, like maybe a SaaS company. So you have three different niches that you're serving, and maybe you're doing really well, maybe you're getting some improvements for their campaigns, and maybe they're actually really happy with everything that you've been doing. But in a lot of cases, you're not able to provide the best output to them just because you're spreading. Every time you enter a new industry, you're essentially starting from zero because you have to start going back to their ICP, trying to understand the market, who are their competitors, understanding the nuances in the industry, like have a good solid understanding of the market. And you're literally starting from scratch every single time, especially if you're in that kind of business. If you're a digital marketing agency, you're unable to give the best results to a client consistently. And even if you did start like creating systems and automating stuff and making it a bit more like process driven, it's really hard to scale to like building a team and scaling your business to six figures or anything beyond that, because you're gonna have to chase rats and chase all these different little things and details into these different industries, and you're not able to like catch and give the best output for your clients. It's really hard to do it because if you're spreading yourself thin, your attention to all these different niches would be diluted. Okay? And that's the power of specializing in a niche. Rather than spreading yourself thin into all these different industries, why not pick like a specific group of people that have the same specific group of similar problems from each other, that you could deliver a solution to that will solve a specific pain point that all those people in that niche has, and then you'd be able to create a system in place to actually effectively scale. Because that's one of the reasons why we're picking a niche in the first place. We're wanting to have the opportunity to scale. Because if you're diluting your attention to all different industries, you're not able to stick and give the best results for anybody. That's just a fact. You can never give the best output to every industry. Why not just specialize to a specific niche where you're able to have a repeatable system that allows you to take one success to another, to the next client that all are in a similar niche. And you're gonna have a way for you to systemize everything, and it's a lot more easier time for you to scale into that kind of business model, rather than having to target real estate and then have technology industry and have education industry, and you're not gonna have the best results. You're gonna get crushed by people that specialize. You could be a generalist maybe in your business. Eventually, you're not gonna be just one guy, one hat pony. In a lot of cases, especially with the industry, how it's moving towards with AI and everything, there needs to be a form of the general skill sets that you may need if you're going to be starting a digital marketing agency. That's an edge that you may have. So I'm not saying that, but if you're wanting to start an agency, ideally you want to look into niches that actually are scalable, and that the grade A, the next module 1.4 grade A niche selection actually goes into a bit more depth into this concept. So I want to spend more time into that part of the course rather than just diluting everything into this single video, because I'm still processing that information, and I'm probably gonna have I'm gonna have to wait for a lot of information that I'm waiting for a lot of I sent messages to, because there's an action item there that actually needs input from other people, and sorry. But yeah, the part of the six-figure fusion, it talks about niche and the importance of it, and going over what you need to become successful in digital marketing or any like consulting business in particular. So I won't go into exact detail to like every single point that Charlie made in the video, because that's just gonna do injustice. I'm not gonna be able to like um, teach people as effectively as how Charlie has it, but I'm gonna go over in another point that actually really stuck with me. And sorry if you have to struggle, you have to like uh, suffer through listening me blowing through my nose every few minutes. I am not feeling well. But one other section that actually stuck with me, and this is actually the most important or the most eye-opening part of the course. In all honesty, when I literally got to this section, I spent like the last few hours the other day just thinking about it. It got me really deep into thinking, man, fuck, this is so real. I really, really relate with this. Let me actually go over with it really quick. So, this concept is basically like second order consequences. It's a concept that Charlie introduced into this part of the section, where basically it means any action that you do has consequences, and that consequence may actually be not just a single order consequence. It's going to have like different chains of consequences that result from the first consequence that actually was, because of the initial action you did. So basically, it's kind of like a butterfly effect. One single action can result to five different result, or like five different scenarios happening just because of one single action you may have taken in yourself. Now, the way you get a better idea on like what I'm just jumbling around here, is if I show you this map. So this is the consequence map. When I mean that your consequences have consequences, and those consequences have consequences to infinity, it's talking about this exact model. So I'm going to give you an example of what those consequences could entail. I'm going to give an example of like a consequence map for a bad habit and a consequence map for maybe doing good habits in particular. So consequences have consequences to infinity. When you do any sort of action in life, you never really think of like what our consequences are. I mean, maybe you do. Maybe you lightly think about why you should not eat a burrito in a Saturday 12 a.m. or something. Maybe you think about consequences if not going to a birthday party for a friend, or maybe not remembering your mother's birthday, or whatever crazy stuff, or not buying some important thing for an event, and then that ended up fucking you up. Or, when we ever think of consequences, we only direct the attention to what it immediately entails. A lot of people never really think about what the consequences are for their other consequence that they do. A good example would be this analogy. Let's say your auntie bought you like an Xbox for Christmas, and your little Timmy is so excited and opens his box for Christmas, and he starts playing the Xbox every few hours on the weekend. He's a kid. He spends a lot of time on the weekends and just playing Xbox, and he enjoys it. He has really a fun time playing. And then, that feedback gets him to play a lot more than usual. Eventually he starts building the habit to actually start playing every day. Now, little Timmy, he starts playing every day, and more hours and more play eventually leads him to get really good at the game. So he's really good at let's say Call of Duty or whatever. So he gets really, really good at game, and then he starts making gaming friends. Now, these gaming friends, they also have same habits as little Timmy. They play every day. They play a lot of hours, and eventually that's a feedback loop. He starts hanging out with his friends, and these friends ended up buying skins, and he also gets encouraged to buy skins because my friends are also buying skins. I also want to show that I have like skins in the game, and I want to also have a sense of belonging. So he ends up like buying skins. But him buying skin ends up him spending his lunch money into this game, and he's just literally starving himself to get skins for the game because that's his sense of accomplishment. But another consequence could be, let's say, if he's very, very, very good at the game, eventually because he's been playing more hours, is he starts getting a sense of progress in game. He is getting really good at the game. He gets a sense of progress at the game. He has a sense of pride getting to a specific rank in game. So, that rank in particular gives him this identity shift to put more of his identity tied to the game. So he has less desire to see progress in his real life just because he's been getting that sense of accomplishment in game in particular. And because he's having a less sense of desire for getting progress in life, then that's gonna entail to him not getting motivated to do work, or maybe not studying if he's a student. Not studying would eventually lead to him failing classes, and then it's gonna fail classes, would lead up to getting your parents mad at you, and then you're gonna get into a whole situation of different things happening. And because of you getting scolded by your parents, maybe you ended up feeling bad about yourself and having anxiety. You start going back to where you started, and you start playing more hours to the game. And then because you're playing more hours to the game, you then stay up a bit more later just to get that sense of dopamine. Because your dopamine receptor is fried, you need a bit more of like that dopamine base level is basically super super high that you have to get that hit every time. You ended up staying up more late, and you destroy your sleep cycle. You do more dumb shit because it's 2 a.m. and you're chasing dopamine. So that ends up you watching pornography or whatever random new addiction you may have. And because you have that new addiction, you're gonna fry your dopamine receptor even more and wire your brain for more instant gratification. And you start buying snacks and sugar to actually keep yourself in that instant gratification loop. And it's basically an entire cycle that started from one little action that you may have not directly thought about. Because when we think about consequences, we only think about the direct consequence that may entail to that action, but we never really think about the chain reaction of all different actions that may happen because of that one decision. If you start seeing consequence map for every single action that you do, you're gonna have a lot better time managing bad habits, preventing yourself from falling to all of these different addictions. Because this concept really stuck with me. A good example would be me. I've reason why it stuck with me because I had the same situation. I'm also an addict in gaming before. Spent a lot of time grinding into like Dota 2. I spent a lot of time actually grinding hours upon hours and spending skins and having more sense of progress in the actual game rather than anything in real life. And that's why it really stuck with me because I never really thought that gaming in itself alone would entail to all of these different consequences. Like I had all these different consequences happening to me, and it all started from gaming. And that's why I had to cut gaming entirely. Yeah, I cut this like even before when I was actually going to this course from Charlie, but I caught it because I just started getting really bad anxiety and depression and kind of like feeling really down. And I tried to map where it just started off. I mean, I have a sort of understanding of like how your physiology and like how your mental state is affected by um, the things that you do, the things that you eat, that the things that you feed your mind to, and how you feed your dopamine if you're doing any detox or whatever. I have that general idea, but this concept really stuck with me because I started seeing consequence maps into every single thing that I'm currently doing. I never really think about consequences having consequences, and that ended up like having this all web of bad habits that started from a single action. It stuck with me because I I just literally had an entire mind shift from that moment that I could literally prime myself to not do anything shit or not do the bad habit as long as I understand like one simple action that's may seem innocent enough right at the moment could actually lead to a whole lead like web of different bad consequences. So rather than even putting myself into that situation of actually just playing game for like even 1 hour a day, I'm just gonna cut gaming entirely because I know the consequence map. I've experienced it before. 1 hour of gaming doesn't really mean 1 hour of gaming because 1 hour of gaming could lead you to playing every day, and that goes through this entire cycle right here, right now. And you can apply the same concept into anything. Maybe you have a certain addiction to social media. Maybe you spend a lot of time in TikTok just scrolling into like different cat videos or whatever random addiction that you have. All of these different little actions actually feed into each other, and that's why you get into a really bad spot. Sorry. That's why you get to in a really bad spot if you don't mind your consequences. But yeah, this is a really good concept. The opposite of like doing bad habits would be, of course, doing good habits. If you're doing good habits, then your consequence of doing that good habit will actually entail to other good habits that may have not even been an option to you if you had never really started one specific action. A good example would be like signing up for a gym. Because if you sign up for a gym, then you started working out, let's say 2 times a week. Working out 2 times a week, you feel good about yourself because you're making a little bit more progress, and because you feel good about yourself, you start training more, and because you're training more, you know, a lot of your friends may be impressed that, oh, Paul is actually. I'm just gonna use myself as an example. Not saying I'm actually buff or anything. Paul is actually getting really good progress in the gym. I should also go to the gym or whatever. And then you start training with your friends, and you training together becomes to your friends becoming your accountability partners, and becoming accountability partners, you train more because you're supporting each other and lifting each other's up, lifting each other's confidence up. And then you train more, and because you're training more, you get more progress. And because you train more together with your friends, you have more time together improving, and then maybe that entails to other consequences, like maybe you start spending a lot more time talking about business, and maybe talking about business entails to you actually starting a business together, and they end up making money. So that's another chain reaction. But let's say the other chain reaction that could result to you, training more and getting more results, you actually get your nutrition fix, because your mentality has been shifting. You've been seeing the results. You also want to maintain those results, so your identity literally rewires to look into other consequences, like fixing your nutrition. And because you're fixing your nutrition, your gut health improves, and all this different chain reaction that never really started if you never start with a specific action, like working out 2 times a week. This is a really good concept, because if you think about consequence maps in any action, any good or bad habit, then you're gonna have a really good foundation of weighing things on why you need to do anything, like why you need to do a specific habit. Um, if you've been reading a lot of um, productivity books, like maybe Atomic Habits by James Clear, then you're gonna see just how important this is to actually be consistent and actually prime your mentality to keep on doing the same things that are good for you and avoiding the bad things that are bad for you. Just cutting them off. Now, there's also another concept here that talks about feeder actions, because this is the cause. So the initial cause that started for you to, let's say in the bad habit example, the initial cause would be your auntie getting your Xbox for Xmas or Christmas. But the feeder action is this playing every day, or like start playing the Xbox every weekends. The way you cut off all of these different bad habits is to actually stop and cut off the feeder action. The feeder action is basically that one single action that you do that feeds onto all of the different consequences, or onto the rest of the consequence map right here. So the feeder action for this example would be actually playing the Xbox every day. So if you stop playing the Xbox every day, you're cutting the oxygen to all of these different actions that you may end up doing just because you start playing every day. And of course, it's easier said than done. Maybe if you got to the point where you're really addicted to gaming, then you're not gonna be able to like cut yourself off like every day. You're not gonna be able to cut yourself off from addiction, especially if you've just been priming yourself for the past decade of your life this gaming. Then your identity is so ingrained to like you have a literal identity of being a gamer that it's so hard to separate yourself to gaming. That's why a lot of people struggle with like self improvement. It's because of the identity. If you've put a lot of your time into a specific thing, then of course you're gonna be identifying into that lifestyle. You're gonna be identifying yourself as a gamer, or in that particular example, this one here. But if you understand consequence maps, and if you understand the concept of feeder actions, then you would have a solid framework on how to prevent yourself to doing all of these different bad habits, as long as you list down the things that are feeding into the consequence map for bad habits. I actually have a few examples of like feeder actions that I've listed down, because I literally took a note and pen and just literally listed down every single thing that could be feeding into like consequence maps, because it's really good for you to take notes. It's gonna set you up to really understanding yourself. Feeder actions for me would be. Let me try to get to that real quick. One feeder action for me would be. Yes, where did I have that actually? Yeah. Let's say checking the phone in the morning isn't enough. Checking the phone in the morning could be anything. Maybe you're checking Messenger, maybe you're checking Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, whatever notification you get. But that single action could actually end up spending the first 2 hours of your day just scrolling. You're feeding into this consequence map. And because you're spending 2 hours scrolling through Facebook or TikTok in the morning, then you're gonna have a shit start of the day, and your dopamine receptor is gonna be fried, and you're gonna look for more instant gratification. You're not gonna have motivation to do work, and because you not have motivation to do work, then you're gonna have all these different consequences. Basically, do you understand what I'm saying? Consequences have consequences. So that checking the phone in the morning is another example of you actually getting into this consequence map again. Another one would be, crazy enough, eating downstairs for me. Um, I have an unhealthy binge eating habit, and I eat a lot of rice. For example, for me, if I literally eat downstairs, I have a tendency to get second batch of rice, and then I end up getting more calories, and I end up getting more fat. Because I'm getting more fat, and I have less motivation to get work done, or like getting exercise done, or whatever, some crazy stuff. So I literally every time I have to eat, I have to take my plate and go upstairs and look into just getting work done. As that way, when I'm actually working and doing stuff here in screen, I'm much more less likely to get second batch, and I'd feel more full because I'm not even thinking about like my stomach or something crazy. But this is pretty good because you can take your current situation in life right now and think about your consequence map. Look into the things that you're feeding into that may end up resulting to all of these different situations, all these bad habits. Then you could use that note to map your life. If you have a good idea of the things that are feeding into bad habits, then you have a good solid framework on how to avoid getting into a really bad spot. Okay. And because you're putting yourself into, preventing things from happening that are bad for you, you have a better chance to actually spend more time to looking into the good habits. And that's the most important part. If you want to do the good habits, you need to stop doing the bad habits first, because if you're doing the bad habits, you're not gonna have a sense of progress in life, right? You're gonna have less motivation, so you're not gonna be able to like consistently do the good habits. So take away the things that are bad for you right now. Take away the things that are really taking your mental health from you, or taking time away from you. Look into the things that are holding you back in terms of the bad habits, and naturally, the good habits will also follow. Of course, you have to do the action. Make sure you're doing and showing up every day. But you need to prime yourself first to cut off all of this bad stuff. And the way you cut them off is if you understand what are the cues that trigger all these different consequences. This concept really stuck with me for a good long time the other day. I hope it does the same for you. I'm not gonna do justice to what Charlie and how he's able to like educate in his courses. If you want to join me in Imperium Academy, you could just search for Imperium Academy in school and be able to like join this. It's a it's a free course, by the way, guys. So you don't have to pay anything. There's so much value. I cannot understate how much value there is in the course. It's crazy. But I really want, in a lot of these videos, is to use this way for me to process and really learn about these concepts. Right now, I am in 1.4 grade A niche selection. I've already done the action items there. I'm just waiting for a couple of people to actually get back with me, but it's a really good course, guys. Just go ahead. You won't really regret taking that leap forward. But yeah, that's it for today.